We want to do which we think is right in our own eyes. You and I am no different than the Hebrew people 3,000 years ago. I tend to do the same thing. Following God, I do things my own way. Things don't go right. I say, God, help me. Why can't I get this right in my life? And God says, okay, Greg, I'm going to bless you. I get the blessing, and then I turn around and I do the same thing over again. We have this cycle which goes on. That's part of what's going on here, because the fact is, in verse 1, it says that there's a famine in the land of Israel. There's a famine. There's the time of disobedience of the people. And a man from Bethlehem, from Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. Moab. There is so much history here. I mean, I could take a couple hours explaining all this. I'm going to try to give you all the Reader's Digest version. Moab is a country which is southwest of the land of Israel. So if in your mind, I don't have it up on the screen, but in your mind, if you think about the Dead Sea, you got Jerusalem and Bethlehem on the west side of the Dead Sea. Moab is over on the east side, the southeast side of the Dead Sea. About a 65-mile journey. We don't think that's too far. 65 miles, no big deal. You jump in the car, you do it. For them, 65 miles was a big deal. And it's also interesting because when they go to the land of Moab, follow me with this, it's going to get confusing. There's Abraham. Remember Abraham? Abraham and his wife Sarah. We looked at Sarah last week. They're called by God. Abraham has a nephew by the name of Lot. Abraham's nephew's name is Lot. A lot of you know the whole story of Sodom and Gomorrah, how God destroyed those 2 cities. Lot leaves Sodom and Gomorrah with his wife and 2 daughters. The wife turns around, pillar of salt, poof, that's what she becomes. The 2 daughters are with Dad. They say, we have no men, what do? We don't know what to do. Older daughter says to younger daughter, let's get Dad drunk and we can get pregnant by Dad. If you've never read that story, you got to, Old Testament is a Peyton place. So, 2 daughters get Dad Lot drunk, separate times, they both become pregnant by Dad. The oldest daughter's son is named Moab, who becomes the father of the Moabites. Of this country where Naomi and her husband are moving to. And when the Jewish people are moving on their Exodus time into the land of Israel, the Moabites try to curse the Jewish people. That doesn't work, and so the women seduce a lot of the Jewish men into their religious beliefs. They seduce them sexually, the Scripture tells us. So what's going on? What happened with Lot and his daughters is going on with the Moabite women with Jewish men. And there's an animosity. They don't like each other. They're from the same family hundreds of years earlier, but they don't like each other. So you have the fact that Ruth and her husband, Naomi and her husband and her 2 sons. The husband's name is, I'm going to say this wrong, but Elimelech, which means my God is king, Naomi's husband, and her 2 sons move from Bethlehem. Does that name sound familiar at all? Jesus is born in Bethlehem. They move from Bethlehem, they go around the Dead Sea over to the country of Moab because there's a famine there. And you got to know that the country of Moab is a desert, arid place. While they're there. Now Naomi's husband dies there, and she's left with her 2 sons. Verse 4 says in chapter 1, the sons married 2 Moabite women, one named Oprah. Oprah means stubborn. Oprah is stubborn. I don't know, and hopefully nobody's named here Oprah. I don't know anybody that's Orpah. And the other one is named, I got this name down, Ruth. Yeah, I like these biblical names of Ruth. Ruth means friendship. Ruth is my mom. Ruth is a sister-in-law that I have with my brother. And these two sons marry these two women, but then we read that both the sons die. So, Naomi is left with her two daughter-in-laws. In this time, with the welfare system, she was stuck. She had no man. The daughter-in-laws had no man, nobody to provide for them. So she decides, she hears in verse 6 that the Lord had provided aid to his people back in the land of Israel, and she and her daughter-in-laws went to return home. Verse 7, the two daughter-in-laws, they left the place of Moab and they returned back to the land of Judah, Israel. And Naomi said to her two daughter-in-laws, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show kindness to you as you have shown kindness to me and shown kindness to your dead husband. May the Lord grant that each of you find rest." And she kissed them, and they wept aloud. And she said, "We want to go back." She said to her two daughter-in-laws, "Go back to your own people." But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have more sons who I could give to you as your husband? Return home. I'm old. Even if I had another husband." I'll explain this shortly. Naomi is saying to her two daughter-in-laws, "Hey, even if I had a new husband, by the time I became pregnant and those boys got raised up, are they going to be your new husbands?" I'll explain that whole situation a little bit, the whole idea with that. And she says, "No, it's not going to happen. Go home." And we read verse 14. They wept together, and the one daughter-in-law kissed her mother-in-law and said goodbye. But Ruth clung on to her mother-in-law. Ruth clung on to her mother-in-law. There is a sense that they are in ruin in their life. Husband dies. One son dies, the other son dies. There's been a famine in the land. They have no financial resources. Their life seems like it is totally destitute and in ruin. But it is interesting that when it's the darkest, when our life seems the worst, when we put our faith in God, that's when the reality sets in that Jesus says, "I am the light of the world." That light in our life. Ruth and Naomi go back to the land of Israel. They're moving from ruin into resolve, into an understanding of how God is working within their life. Chapter 1, verse 15 says this. Chapter 1, 15. Well, really the end of 14. But Ruth clings on to her mother-in-law. And Naomi says, "Look, your sister-in-law is going back to your people and her gods. Go back with her." What's interesting there, go back to her gods. 2 Kings talks about the fact that the people of Moab worshipped all these various gods, and part of their worship was child sacrifice. Child sacrifice. That'd be a testable to Yahweh God. Ruth is saying, I'm not going to go back to my gods. And then what Ruth says is, when I was growing up, this was a big passage used at weddings. Maybe some of you used this passage some years ago at your wedding. Ruth says, "Where you go and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people." I can read it up there, not my Bible, sorry. Okay, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God." Ruth is changing the direction of her life, the degrees of the direction of her life, to end up someplace different than where she was back home. "Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and I." Ruth here has a resolve to go with her mother-in-law. Now, what do we tend to say is one of the major issues in marriages of our children? It's the mother-in-law or father-in-law, right? We have no problems, right, Kathy? No. Like you're going to say yes here in front of everybody, right?